guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. If you have seen any of my videos before, then you are probably noticing the vast different background that I have going on right now. My life is in absolute shambles. My mom, who I live with, just decided randomly one day that she was moving and I needed to go find somewhere else to stay. So I'm living in like 4 different places right now. It is an absolute mess. Nothing really bad happened. It's just like that is really stressful. I'm such a homebody, so that's really difficult for me. I've been staying with my boyfriend. Right now I'm filming in my grandparents' attic. So just bear with me with this weird, crazy background. Hopefully it will get better and we'll find something better than there was before and we can figure this all out together because I am so stressed out. I feel like I even look crazy. But I still wanted to film a video for you guys today. I don't know how consistent the videos are going to be for the next little while until I figure out my stuff. But I already had this video planned, so I figured I would sit down even if the background isn't great and I would film it for you guys today. The reason that I picked to talk about the topic that we're going to be discussing today is actually kind of a funny story. I was driving through Pickton, Ontario on a little bit of a road trip that I had gone on a couple weeks ago, and while I was driving through Pickton, I was like, oh my goodness, there's a serial killer that comes from here. I should look into it and do a video on that guy for my channel. And then I realized that the Pickton Pig Farmer did not come from Pickton. His last name is Pickton. So today we are going to be talking about the case of Robert Willie Pickton. Robert Willie Pickton was born on October 24th, 1949 in Port Coquitlam, BC, which is located just outside of Vancouver. He was born to his 2 parents, Leonard and Louise Pickton. He had an older sister and would have a younger brother. Now, something to note here is that Willie was not treated as well, I guess, as his siblings. He definitely had a very rough upbringing. His older sister was kind of the favorite, so much so that her parents had even shipped her off to Vancouver to live with relatives because they didn't think that the pig farm that they were running was a place for a young lady to grow up. So she had a much better life than Willie and his younger brother. They kept both Willie and his younger brother on the pig farm, and they got them to start working on the farm at a very, very young age. And again, the kids were pretty abused. I mean, the younger brother and the sister definitely had it better than Willie, but it wasn't a great life altogether. The parents would really neglect their children and kind of made them, I guess, like put the pigs first. Like the pig farm came before the kids' needs, so much to the point that Willie and his younger brother were often just sent to school after doing hard labor in the morning at the pig farm, and they would smell like carcasses and like just smell absolutely terrible, like you know how pigs smell. And this got them bullied really, really bad by the other kids that they went to school with, and they started calling Willie and his younger brother stinky pigs. It was noted in a lot of the articles that both parents were abusive, but the mother was much less abusive than the father, and so Willie really took to his mom. He loved her so much, and I feel like that usually happens. Like obviously the kid only knows their own parent, so they're obviously going to take more to the one that is less abusive. However, the father was extremely abusive, which I feel like is kind of like a reoccurring thing in serial killers. Something else to note here is that, again, the younger brother was favored way more than Willie. So much to the point that in one of the articles that I was reading, I came across something that said his younger brother had taken the parents' car, like stolen it for a joyride when he was like 16 years old, and he went out and he ended up hitting somebody, and the person had passed out. Like it was like a severe hit, like he had really hit them and injured them. And so he got back in the vehicle, drove home, told his parents what he had done, and his mother went out and found the person that her son had hit and hid the body. Now, if this person wasn't taken like that, if they had taken him to a hospital instead of hidden the body, it is likely that this person would have lived. But because they had taken the precaution to protect their son over the person that he had hit with their vehicle, this person ended up passing away. And when he went home and told them what happened, the father actually took the car to the mechanic and got them to fix the vehicle up so that his son would never be suspected of having any involvement in this. So that really just shows how much they really did favor the younger son. Willie's early life, when he was probably around being a preteen, he had used his own money to purchase himself a cow. Now, him and this cow had a really strong bond, and he treated this cow like a pet. And he was really close to it. He took it everywhere. He wanted to see it all the time. He was always excited when he came home to see the cow. And it was just something that was really important to him, and he loved it a lot. So one day he had gone to school and he came home like he did every day, all excited to see his pet cow. And he ran outside to see this cow and went into the barn only to find that his father had slaughtered his pet. Now, you can only imagine how traumatizing that would be at such a young age to find something like that happening. I mean, I have several dogs, and if I ever came home to find that my mom had done something like that to one of my dogs, I would be traumatized, and I'm an adult, so I can only imagine how traumatizing that was for a child. When Willie was just 14 years old, he dropped out of high school to work full-time at a butcher, and in 1970 he decided to quit this butcher job and started working full-time on the family's pig farm, which was called the Pickton Pig Farm, which is where this case gets its name. Willie's father ended up passing away in 1978, and his wife followed behind, passing away in 1979, leaving the pig farm to Willie and his siblings. Now, Willie's siblings had absolutely no interest in the pig farm at all. Willie had been working there since he was a kid, so obviously he was very interested in taking this over, but his brother and his sister had no interest in this, so they kind of settled that the sister didn't want anything. She kind of just went on her own. But the brother did have interest in the family home, so Willie said, you know, you can have the house, I will have the pig farm, and the property that they owned was very, very big, so he took on the pig farm and then kind of bought himself a trailer and set it up at the back of the family property, so he did have some privacy. It's not like they were all living together. However, Willie and his brother were living on the same property. Something that I just want to mention here before we move on in this case is that the Pickton family was very wealthy, including Willie. Their pig farm did really, really well, and so because of that, the family was making a lot of money. However, their homes did not resemble that at all. People said that the property of the Pickton Pig Farm was just absolutely disgusting. Now, obviously, you would think that with it being a pig farm, but even their homes were disgusting, and people who visited the property just said that it stunk, it was really creepy, and it just gave you this really weird, unsettling feeling, not only because the animals were being killed there, but also just because like their living state was just gross. It was around this time that people started to notice the uproar of more women going missing in the downtown east side of Vancouver. Now, this was a really run-down side of town, and there was at least 15 women who had vanished from this area without a trace between the years of 1979 to 1993, with majority of these women who had gone missing being homeless. Something that wasn't a secret about Willie was that he was very familiar with the east side downtown Vancouver. He would go there a lot. He would go there to pick up women and hang out. He hung out at this place called Astoria, which was this like really sketchy motel, or I think it was just like a normal hotel bar, but it was like sketchy and rundown and like not the most favorable people would hang out there, but Willie would often go there, and he would go there to pick up women. He would go in and he would never drink alcohol. He would always just get a pop, and he would sit there and he would talk to these women, and the women that he was trying to pick up, he would always pay their whole bill. He would let them get any food they wanted, any drinks they wanted, and then he would pay for it, and then he would try and take them home. And so he was very familiar with this area, and he was known to go there to pick up women. Nights when Willie was successful at doing this, he would bring these women back to his pig farm. And when several of these women started to go missing, a lot of them again were homeless or, you know, not from the most favorable background. So when their loved ones started to report them missing, police a lot of the time just dismissed it, which sadly happens way too often. On March 23rd, 1997, Willie was charged with attempted murder on a woman by the name of Wendy Lynn Esther. Wendy was a sex worker that had come to Willie's pig farm. She was in his trailer, and she said that while she was there, she just felt really unsettled, and she knew that something was wrong. So once she got there, she told Willie that she needed to call her boyfriend, and he allowed her to do so. However, once she got to the phone, he then handcuffed her. She was absolutely terrified, and this next series of events switches I've read two separate things in several different articles. One of these things saying that Willie began stabbing her, and other things say that she had panicked and she remembered seeing a knife and she grabbed it off the table and started to attack Willie, but he'd gotten the knife off of her and then began stabbing her. Whichever one ended up being true doesn't really matter because both of them ended up being severely injured, and Wendy showed up to the hospital, and several hours later Willie showed up to the same hospital. They both told their stories and there was a court date. However, Wendy was too scared to show up to the court date, and all of the charges were dropped on January of 1998. Now, this is so crazy to me because Willie's clothing from that night was taken into custody because he was being investigated for attacking this woman, but Wendy again didn't show up. However, if she had, the DNA on Willie's clothes would have been tested and they would have found the blood of two of the other missing women from Vancouver on his clothing. Now, I know this kind of thing happens all of the time in cases like this, but it never ceases to amaze me how often things like this happen. I mean, if somebody comes in, I feel like, and says, you know, this guy attacked me, I was scared for my life, I feel like even if the woman is too scared to show up to the court date, maybe something should still be done. The man should still face some kind of repercussions. They should have at least tested the DNA on his clothes. I don't know. I know this kind of thing happens a lot, but it just blows my mind. 1996, the Pickton siblings started a charity organization called the Piggy Palace Good Time Society. And in this society, they would hold events for charities, and they would have parties, and they would coordinate parties for other people. And it was just kind of like this building that was on the Pickton Pig Farm property. Now, these parties would all come to an end on New Year's Eve of 1998, I believe, as they were violating zoning laws and stuff like that, so they weren't allowed to hold these parties anymore. But I just wanted to throw that in here because the Pickton farm had been visited by police several times, and there were so many people who had come and gone from this property during the time that Willie was carrying out these murders and all of this kind of crazy, scary, creepy stuff was taking place. There were so many people who had visited the property during this time, and not very many people had gone back to police and said anything. There definitely were a few who were like, this is kind of weird, I feel like something is up here, but there wasn't very many who did. In 1999, one of those people who did think that something was up at the property anonymously called the police, saying that they believed that Willie was keeping human flesh in his freezer. A warrant was given to search the property, however, for whatever reason, a search was never carried out. And then on February 5th, 2002, police showed up to search the Pickton's property again, this time because of gun violations. And while police were searching the property, that is when they found several items that belonged to women who were reported missing. And because of this, Willie was then arrested. The property was then thoroughly searched, and that is when they found several human remains of the victims that had been killed by Robert Willie Pickton. Now, this part is very graphic, but they found a skull on the property that had actually been cut in half, and it was stuffed with human hands and feet. They had found the DNA of 33 missing women on the property. They also found a bunch of blood-soaked clothing, and they did end up finding one jawbone. On the property, they also found a .22 revolver that had a dildo attached to it and a .357 Magnum rounds. Now, I am not a gun person, so I don't know what that last part means, but I did want to include it for those of you who do. On the property, they had also found a pair of night vision goggles, 2 pairs of fake furry handcuffs, and a photograph of a garbage can that ended up containing the remains of one of the victims. When Willie was being questioned, he came clean pretty quick, and he had told the officers that the dildo had been attached to the barrel of the gun as a silencer. Like, what the heck? But while Willie was being held, there was another inmate in there with him who ended up being an undercover officer, and Willie had told this officer that he wanted to kill, or this inmate, that he wanted to kill one more person to make it an even 50, suggesting that he had killed 49 women. Robert Willie Pickton's trial would start on January 30th, 2006, with Willie pleading guilty to 26 murder charges. Sadly, however, one of these 26 charges would be rejected due to lack of evidence. On December 6, 2007, Robert Willie Pickton was convicted of the murders, and he was charged with first-degree murder, which was later reduced to second-degree murder, and he is serving life in prison without the possibility of parole for 26 years, which means that he is going to be eligible for parole pretty soon, but that is the highest punishment for second-degree murder in Canada. I really wish that I had time to sit down and talk about every single victim and every single suspected victim of Robert Willie Pickton's. However, I do not have that time, or we would be sitting here for hours, but I do suggest that you go look into this case more if you wish to know more information about the lives of the victims. Willie is suspected of disposing of these women's bodies by grounding them up and feeding them to his pigs, which would then be grounded up and turned into food, or he would grind them up with the pig flesh and then go and sell it to markets, meaning that it is likely that some people were eating human flesh when they thought that they were eating pork. Willie was never convicted of 49 murders, but it is believed that he is responsible for the death of 49 missing women. My heart sincerely goes out to all of the loved ones and family members and the victims themselves of Robert Willie Pickton. I just think that this case is absolutely devastating and so morbidly disgusting. But guys, that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. Once again, I do apologize for the background. You're gonna have to bear with me on that one. And I also do apologize if you can hear any background noise. This house is also chaotic. There's 2 babies, 1 million adults, 1 million dogs. This is just a full house, and it's much smaller than the house that I was filming in before, so the likelihood of you hearing background noise is much higher. I did just want to throw in here too that I'm trying to post on TikTok more. I'll have my TikTok linked in the description box if you feel like checking that out, if you would like to see more content from me. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.